Hi guys, to another episode of Dimitra's Dishes. Today we're going to be making apple pie tarts. These are beautiful, delicious, easy to make, and they can be made ahead, which is the perfect thing to have for dessert if you're looking for something for Thanksgiving or for a holiday dinner or just for something special. I actually make apple flavored desserts for my oldest son every year on his birthday. He's been asking for it since he was a little kid. We never make cakes for him. He just loves apple flavored desserts, and this was his cake this year. So I thought, why not show you how to make it? I shared it on Instagram and I got so many messages requesting it. So here it is. Let's get started. All right, so you can make this tart in almost any in any pan. My favorite one is this tart pan with a removable bottom because it just makes for a beautiful presentation. It's simple to take out of this thing also and just put it on a platter. And these are usually non-stick, so you just never have to grease them. Anyway, this is just my favorite thing to use, but you can also use what you have, obviously. Don't go running out buying special pans. You can also use a cheesecake pan. These are usually called cheesecake pans. They're springform pans. And these also release easily. I'm gonna make it in these two just for demonstration. You can use a pie pan or even a 9 by 13 inch baking dish. If you're using a pie pan or any one of these tart or springform pans, you're gonna need two because this makes 2 servings, or cut the recipe in half. I recommend making 2 because this is delicious, as you will see once it's ready. Let's start. So I'm gonna make 2 batches of my shortbread cookie dough because that's gonna be the crust and it's also gonna be the topping. And you will see what we're talking about in a second. So I like to use my tabletop mixer, but you could use a hand mixer if that's all you have. You're gonna put 3 sticks of butter in the mixer. This is unsalted butter, and 3 sticks is 3/4 of a pound. Each one of these sticks are 113 grams. So my mixer can probably handle a double batch, but I'm just gonna do it twice, just so that way everything doesn't end up on the floor. I'm also gonna add a cup of granulated sugar, a little bit of salt, and 2 teaspoons of pure vanilla extract. And I'm gonna mix that until everything is nice and fluffy. And while the mixer is going, I'm just gonna measure 3½ cups of all-purpose flour. Okay, make sure you scrape down the side of the bowl in between so that way whatever stuck to the bottom and the sides will incorporate evenly. Then I'm gonna add the flour a little bit at a time until it's incorporated, and I'm gonna I'm gonna mix this on a low speed so everything is incorporated and a dough is formed, and then I'm just gonna do the same thing and make 1 more batch of this shortbread cookie dough. Both batches of shortbread cookie are ready. You're gonna wanna take one and wrap it in plastic wrap because we're not gonna use it for a little while. And then cut this one into 2 equal portions. And now we're just gonna divide it equally in the pan. So I'm gonna first fill this tart pan up. And it's so easy to do. You just press it into the pan and up the sides of the pan. Then any dough that's coming out, just with your thumb and your index finger, just go ahead and press it off. It'll come off really easily, and that's just gonna help make a beautiful, more defined decorative edge on top. And just put the little pieces that come off inside the pan. And then just press everything down, make one flat, even layer. How easy is that? This is the same crust that I use to make pumpkin pies too. It's my favorite. It's so easy. You don't have to worry about anything. It's so much easier than making a pie crust. Okay, so this one is done, and I'm just gonna put it onto a baking tray. And I'm gonna set it aside. These do need to chill in the freezer for a while. The best part of this step is that you can do this 2-3 weeks ahead of time. Let them sit in your freezer until you're ready to use them, and then you just bake them once you're ready to bake them, once you're ready to serve. So now I'm gonna fill the springform pan just so that way you could see that you can do this really in any pan. And like I said before, you don't have to use a springform pan or a Tart pan. You can do this in a big 9 by 13 inch baking pan and make like apple tart or apple pie bars. This is a perfect dessert if you're feeding a crowd. You want to make something special, that tastes delicious too. So this is not going to go all the way up, just a little bit up, just to kind of get a really nice border to hold the filling. There we go. It's about 3/4 of the way up the side of the pan. These are going to go in my freezer. If you're making them the same day, let them chill for about 30-40 minutes, maybe an hour. What that's going to do is it's going to help them hold their shape once they're baking, and they're just going to be perfect and delicious. But like I said, have these ready in your freezer, ready to go, because you can fill these with anything, not just the apple pie filling. I'm going to clean up, and then we're going to move on to the next step. So now it's time to make the topping. Now you can make the topping 2 different ways. You can cut out little fall leaves. Like I have these little leaf cutters, these cookie cutters. I think I got them from either Sur La Table or from Williams & Sonoma, but I'll find the link on Amazon and I'll post it. I think they're super cute. And you could do that and make these little shortbread leaves for the topping, or you could cut out strips and just simply do a little, simple decoration on top. And I'll show you how to do both. Let's start with the leaves first. I love making these cookies anyway during the fall. They're so festive and pretty and bite-sized. They're perfect with a cup of tea or a cup of coffee, afternoons, mornings, really anytime. You're just going to want to keep a bowl with flour handy so that way the cookie cutter won't stick to the dough. And just lightly flour your work surface and roll these out to really as thick as you want them. You can go all the way up to a 1/2 inch in thickness. Don't do them too thin, otherwise they're going to burn. That looks perfect. So again, you can make these little cutouts way ahead of time and just keep them in your freezer, ready to bake, ready to put on top of pies and tarts like we're doing today, or you could just bake them off and serve them with coffee to guests. Just look at how pretty they are. They have a beautiful indentation in the center, and they all have different designs. There are these leaves over here, the little acorns we have. You can do a combination of designs, but I like to stick with one. I think it looks more elegant, more pretty. Anyway, I'm going to continue cutting out these cookies, and then we're going to move on to the next step. Once they start getting stuck, you're going to want to dip your little cookie cutter in the flour, and then they come out again easily. So when it comes time to assemble the pies, you're going to want to make sure that the oven is preheated to 350 degrees Fahrenheit. Have your apple pie filling ready too if you want to learn how to make this apple pie filling. It was the previous recipe that I posted. I'll post it in the description box down below, as well as in the end of the video in the card section, so that we could get this beautiful, delicious apple pie filling. You want it to be at room temperature or cold when you make it. Your pie crust should be nice and chilled right now. So they were in there for like an hour. So what I'm going to do first, before I put the topping on, let me scoot this aside. I rolled out the other half of the shortbread into a 1/2 inch thick round. So I'm going to put the apple pie filling in here. There's going to be more, there's probably going to be some apples left over, because I don't know if they're all going to fit in both of these pans. We shall see. Last time I made it, I had leftover. This time it looks like there's going to be just enough. Yum. I was snacking on these apples though, so should mention that. Anyway, that is looking good. I'll get some of this sauce and put it in this one. For a simple topping, if you don't want to make the cookie cutouts, just roll out the, what is this called? The shortbread dough into a 1/2 inch thick big round, and then cut out little strips. And this is not, well, it is pretty easy to use right now. Usually it falls apart. And just put them on top, just like this. If you want to get fancy and crisscross on top, you see how this broke? That kind of stuff happens, and I like to show it to you because I don't want you to panic if it happens to you. I don't think you can crisscross this, what's it called, the shortbread on top, because it's not as easy to lift up and down. Can you see it, how it's breaking? I don't know if you could see it or not. So you can just simply put a few strips on top just like this. It's gonna look delicious at the end anyway. It's gonna look beautiful, I should say. It's gonna taste delicious. So you see how we have the strips on top? That alone looks pretty, but I'm gonna take some of these cookies and I'm just gonna line the outside, the circle, the border. I'm gonna make a border of these leaves just to get a little more fancy with putting minimal amount of effort. I've seen on Pinterest and here and there some beautiful pie crusts. They do look a little bit intimidating. I'm sure they're not if you probably watch the videos or something, but I think this looks really pretty too. Looks like you put a lot of effort into it, a lot of love. And then for a little bit of sparkle, I like to sprinkle some granulated sugar on top of the shortbread. So that's one option for you. Okay, for this one, I'm just gonna put all of these leaves on top, and I'm gonna start in the center. Just like that, I'll put a few in the center, and then I'm just gonna go around. Oops, let them all face the same way. So I'm gonna cut out a few more of these leaves and just continue lining the top of the pie. The more the better. So now I'm just gonna sprinkle the top with some granulated sugar. The oven is preheated to 350 degrees Fahrenheit. These are both gonna go inside the oven on the center rack, and they're gonna bake for about 45 minutes to an hour. It can go a little bit higher, maybe an hour and 15 minutes. Keep an eye on them because you don't want it to burn, you don't want it to over brown. Every oven cooks different, so keep an eye on it, and I'll show you what it looks like as soon as it comes out. With the remaining shortbread that I have over here, I'm just gonna cut out little leaves and then I'm gonna bake them off later on once the pies are done. So the tarts are ready. They took exactly an hour and 5 minutes in my oven, and I do like to rotate them because sometimes the sides of the tarts that are closest to the side of the oven tend to get a little bit darker brown. Once they come out, let them sit at room temperature in the pie pans for at least 30 minutes. An hour is probably the best, so that way the pie has a chance to set. So when you remove it or release it from the tart pan or the springform pan, they release easily and they don't fall apart. Make yourself some coffee, call some friends over, and it's time to do the taste test. But before we do that, look at these cookies that I made with the remaining shortbread dough. They're cute little shortbread cookies that are perfect for tea time or coffee time. They stay fresh for as long as they last, basically, because there's no eggs in them. You can store them in airtight containers and just enjoy them with a cup of coffee or tea. When you cut into this pie, make sure that it has set completely. So give it about an hour before you cut into it. And it is time for the taste test. Perfection. The shortbread cookies on top are perfectly cooked. They're slightly soft on the bottom because they're in contact with that filling. The apples are they're still tender. They're not melted or applesauce. That filling has all the flavors of autumn. I love the cinnamon in there. It's just amazing. And the crust is perfectly cooked. I think shortbread crust is my favorite pie crust. That one and cream cheese pastry are my two favorites, but shortbread is definitely number one. All the exact measurements are on the website, www.dimitrasdishes.com. The freezer instructions are going to be on there, so that way you can make this ahead of time, step by step. All of the measurements are on there too. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section down below. And to make the apple pie filling, click over here and I'll see you right over there. Yes, Ess?